welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest is currently playing Meg Giry in the Western production of The Phantom of the Opera. She was previously also in the international tour of Cats, and we're delighted to be joined by the very lovely Ellie Young. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Carlos.
Yeah, so His Majesty's Theatre, it was recently renamed to His Majesty's Theatre following the coronation. Has it been, confusing, exciting, working in somewhere which now has a new name?
Confusing, definitely, for all my parcels that arrive at the theatre. But I wasn't actually there when the name was changed. I was on holiday, but I bet it was such a special sight to see, and it is, even though it's so lovely that it's been Her Majesty's for so long. And when we found out it was changed, and we were, it's a really special. It's a special place, and Phantom has been here so long, and everyone knows it as Her Majesty's. But it's always followed the monarch, and it's really nice that it continues to do so traditionally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you say, the theatre, is very much, the home of the Phantom of the Opera, and it's become this like landmark for, tourists and theatre goers coming to see the show. Had you visited the theatre before and, seen the show, and why do you think, the show sits so well in His Majesty's Theatre?
To be completely honest, no, I hadn't seen the show at this theatre. So I originally joined the UK tour that went out just before the pandemic. It closed due to the pandemic. So I was never based in London during my professional career to get the opportunity to come down and see it. I was always studying, so we weren't allowed out in the night time. So that wasn't an opportunity. It's such a small, intimate theatre, and that's what makes it so lovely. And when our director comes in, he compared it to Broadway. Actually, he said, when you're on Broadway, you really you have to really project out to, it changes the style in which you act out to a big audience, a huge house, because people are so far away. Your expression becomes a little bit more. You just have to do a little bit more. Whereas here, because it's so intimate and really, I think the front row is probably about 2 or 3 meters away from us on stage. It gives a really up close and personal experience for the audience, and it's really nice. It's lovely, and it's nice for us as well. I was leaving the theatre last night and I saw a woman, and I said, "Oh, she was in the front row." I recognize people outside of the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really special theatre, definitely. I was really curious, I know that you trained at the Royal Ballet School, and I was really curious about, your transition to musical theatre. Was that something that you always wanted to do, or did you just sort of like fell into it?
No, it definitely wasn't something I always wanted to do. I definitely wanted to follow the ballet career right up until I transitioned into the upper school. So in the Royal Ballet School, there's a lower school for 5 years and the upper school for 3. The upper school's based in Covent Garden, and once I got there, things started to change for me. I mean, just in all areas, and I started to think, I wonder what life is like beyond the Royal Ballet, the bubble I've lived in for 5 going on 6 to be 8 years. And I at points I just felt so unhappy that I just thought, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe there are other things out there, and maybe I should explore that. And I actually came about, I auditioned for Cats the musical. That was my first professional gig, as you call it. And when the audition came through, I immediately just declined it, because you have the opportunity to accept or decline an audition that you receive. And really, looking back, I can't believe I did that. I would never do that now. But I wasn't allowed out of school, and things were strict, and I had a job in a ballet company. I thought, well, I'm going to this ballet company, so I can't really get another job. Anyway, with some convincing, my agent said, go along to it. And it happened once in a blue moon. When I think about it, it's fate, really. But the school had given us a rest day that day. So I went off to go and do this audition. And that was on the Friday. We had another rest day on the Monday, which again, it just never happens. And because been doing lots of performances over at the Opera House as work experience, so they decided to give us a little break. And I went to the audition on the Friday, and I got a call back on the Monday, and I got the job. So then it was, I was in the predicament where I had to decide whether I continue it down the classical ballet route and I go to a company, or I choose to go on the Cats tour, and I ended up choosing the Cats tour.
Oh, that's so amazing. I mean, yeah, as you say, you did a lot of work, at the Royal Opera House, working, at these, large, opera houses. How has it been, transitioning and working in, a smaller, West End theatre? Does it feel very different?
It does actually feel very different. It feels to actually perform and dance on a smaller stage is a very different feeling, and not for I couldn't tell you an answer that's particularly interesting, but in a way, it's nicer to dance. It feels safer to dance. But I've danced on all kinds of sizes of stages, and I've enjoyed them all equally, really. And for in some ways, the Opera House is just incredible because it's so vast, and you look out to the auditorium, and it takes your breath away.
Yeah, there's not many, ballet, dance, heavy musicals being written today. Is this something that you see, perhaps, coming back in the future as well, too?
Oh, I couldn't say. I mean, I've heard that ballet isn't in fashion at the moment, but who knows? It could come back around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, was Meg Giry as well, a character that, you had an eye on? What was it that drew you to this character?
It's it's a funny one, really. I never really thought about playing Meg until I went off onto the Cats tour, and I always just sort of had at the back of my mind, oh, that is a role that I'd like to play, perhaps. But I never really knew if I'd get the opportunity to. I was away, and it ended up coming about because um I was on this tour, I was in Manila, and the opportunity came through to audition, and I was sort of a bit baffled. I wasn't even in the country. I didn't know that the production was happening. I mean, the the version in London had already been cast while I was away, and I wasn't back, for the renewal of the cast, so that was out of the question. No audition for that. But the UK tour happened to start the day I finished Cats. So it was, again, kind of, the stars just aligned. And when I got the audition through, I was doing the self-tape in between a double show of Cats. We had 2 shows a day. So I'd get out of all my hair, wig, makeup, everything, do the self-tape, and then get back into it for the evening show. And that was sort of that. There's not much I could do from across the world. I did the tape, sent it off, hoped for the best. And that night, my agent called me, and she was holding a glass of champagne and just said, but, well done for all your hard work. You've got it. And I sort of couldn't believe it. It all happened so fast. And it was lovely. But as I say, it sort of was at the back of my mind for about 5 or 6 months. So that's something that I'd like to do.
Oh, wow, amazing. I mean, you've been part of the show, for, nearly 2 years, is that right? You've very much been part of it since, the show reopened after COVID. And you've seen, various, Phantoms and Christines. There's been various cast changes since. How has it been, working with like different actors, working on this show together?
Do you know, that's probably one of my favorite things about the job, is just seeing the range of immense talent in the building. And I suppose that's quite different from the ballet world, where everyone really excels in ballet. Yes, people may vary as to what within the art that they're best at and what they're best at acting in the roles, but this but musical theatre kind of brings people from all different realms, where you can have someone in the company who's an excellent actor or an excellent singer or an excellent comedic, or that I just love to meet all kinds of people, and I do genuinely feel really inspired watching them.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like for you, obviously dancing is a huge strong point for you. When did you discover, the singing and the acting part of, yourself as well?
Oh, well, quite ignorantly, when I when I came into the when I chose cats, I think it was my mum said to me, "Well, singers in the musical theatre world, they are really good, you know." I don't think she wanted to sugarcoat it for me at all. And she said, "How are you going to cope with that? Because you haven't, I hadn't sung. I just focused on ballet my whole life. Um, and I sort of could hold a tune, and I went, oh, it's fine. I'll just wing it." And anyway, I quickly found out that is not the case at all. People are, excellent. So since then, I've just been taking singing lessons, doing what I can to try and develop that area as much as I can.
Yeah, of course. And since you've joined the show, there's been, a number of different phantoms, as we mentioned earlier. John Robbins is obviously the newest phantom, and you've gotten to work opposite Killian and Al Carpenter, as we talked about before this interview. Has it been interesting, watching, these different actors playing the same character? And do you think that they're very different phantoms, or would you say it's still, very much the same, method in a way?
No, I was actually thinking last night that all of them play it obviously within the guidelines, but very differently. And I can't say that one is better than the other, or it's personal preference, and it's who you like. But I definitely think that they all play it very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting to hear you say that. Obviously, as you mentioned, the first show that you did was Cats. It was another Angela Weber musical, but very different to Phantom of the Opera. How did you find that transition, going from Cats to Phantom?
Um, I mean, yeah, the show requires different skills, definitely, and it was nerve-wracking for me to have to sing on my own in front of the company for the first time. That's always the worst. In whatever you do, even when in any type of company, in any type of art form, to perform in front of your colleagues is probably the most nerve-wracking thing, because we all have so much respect for each other, and I know how great they are, and I want equally you want them to think that you're good as well. So yeah, and having more musical responsibility was a big change for me. Yeah, because in Cats, the white cat doesn't sing solo at all.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, have you had the chance to meet Angelo Weber at all as well? And have you had a chance to talk with him about developing singing and developing Meg Giry or the White Cat at all too?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to have a conversation with him about that, but I have met him briefly on a few occasions when he came to the opening of the tour, when he came to the opening night of the reopening night of Phantom London, and also the 35th anniversary. So we have seen him around and about, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the most incredible body of work, with, things like Phantom and Cats. And, I think Aspects of Love is coming back to the West End as well later this month. Um, are there any other Angela Weber shows that you'd like to be a part of in the future too?
All of them, to be honest. No, do you know, that's kind of a rule I try to make for myself. I try not to set my sights on a particular show too much, just because you don't know what comes up in the future, and that might make you just as happy. And I never want to feel as though, oh, I've had a great career, but I didn't do that one show, and it really annoys me, because you know it to be honest, in this industry as well, obviously talent, it all depends upon the right place at the right time. And as I said before, my Phantom contract happened to align to be one day after the end of my Cats contract. If it had crossed over by a week, that would have been out of the question for me. So it all just depends on timing, really.
Yeah, of course. Definitely I see what you mean by that as well. I mean, do you see yourself ever going back down the ballet route at all? Like, do you see yourself going back and doing, ballet at, the Royal Opera House and, places like that too?
A lot of people ask me that question here, actually, and I'm not sure, to be totally honest, because I now split my time between obviously trying to maintain my skills in dance, but I also spend a lot of time practicing me singing and other things like that. We also work on a very different timetable. I think that if I were to decide that I wanted to go back down the ballet route, I would have to put everything else aside and just focus on that, because it's such a top tier athleticism that you need, really. So yeah, I think my all of my time and energy would have to go solely on that.
Yeah, you mentioned as well, obviously you got Meg Giry on the tour initially before you came along to the West End. If the opportunity came about, to go on tour with the show as Meg Giry came about again, would you want to do that too?
Never say never, really. I mean, I'm not sure if the tour will come back anytime soon, but I, I you know I definitely feel fulfilled in what I'm doing now. I don't feel that I need to kind of do it in other places or any to feel like I've ticked the box. I do definitely feel happy here.
Yeah, do you feel like doing the West End feels very different to touring as well?
Performance wise, no. I suppose you do sort of build a rapport with fans when you're here, because you get repeat fans coming back time and time again. So that's quite nice. Just to see the impact the show has on people. And um yeah, I think it brings people a lot of comfort and a lot of happiness. So that's really lovely to see. So yes, I would say it's different to touring in a way.
Yeah, how was it as well, like doing that final scene as well, lifting the Phantom's mask and looking out into the audience, what is it like, what is it, being in that position, night after night?
It's really lovely, and people often mention the fact that, oh, you closed the show, and
Mm,
sometimes I go, oh yeah, I did, because you forget. I watched the final layer from the bridge at the top,
mm.
and yeah, I sort of come down, and I suppose Ty ended off, and yeah, it's lovely to have that responsibility. It's kind of it's a moment that people remember.
Yeah, and it's great to see, London's West End, really buzzing again after, a few years of, everything being locked down and being closed. Outside of when you're not working, what do you like to get up to as well, when you're in London's West End?
Oh, when I'm specifically in the area.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not a party animal, I've got to be honest. I'm older than my years, but I like the cafes around here. I spend quite a lot of time meeting friends, going to cafes. Um, and I really like Zara on Regent Street, so you'll see me in there a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, it's been so lovely getting to talk to you. What would you most want people to know about you as Ellie Young?
Oh, I have no idea, actually. No, I suppose just that if I were talking to people who weren't performers, I would just say that we're all very normal people, and we all I think sometimes people see the West End as you know as glittering lights, which it really is, and everyone works so hard to make sure that it is such a special place, but that we all I don't know, we live a pretty normal person's life, except the fact that we perform, and we all work extremely hard to get where we are, and but we know that that things can be taken away from us just as easily as shown in the pandemic. So I think just that everyone here is pretty humble and grateful for the fact that we get to work here.
Of course, amazing. Ellie Young, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.